everyone, and welcome to Eye on Chicago. I'm Antonio Mora. One of the most spontaneous wits on television is CBS Late Late Show host Craig Ferguson. In a year when Mel Gibson, Michael Richards, and even Rosie O'Donnell are crafting the art of the apology, Ferguson has one of his own.
I should also, who else should I apologize to? Bob Barker. I should apologize to him because I called him a vampire. He's not a vampire, he's the vampire. Nosferatu!
Ferguson is not only an acerbic wit, but an actor, a director, and the author of a critically acclaimed new book, Between the Bridge and the River. He joins me now. Craig, great to have you here. Thanks for coming in.
Very nice to be here, Antonio. Thank you for having me in Chicago.
Wonderful to have you back. Nice to have you in Chicago for the second time in Chicago this year, and you've never been here before.
Yeah, I've been here twice this year. The first time I came to Chicago was the summer, and I was like, oh, this is fantastic. And then now in the winter, and I have never felt cold like this.
even though you're from Scotland.
I'm telling you, I know cold. I'm from Scotland. I know cold. My first wife was Scottish. I know frostiness. But this is, whoa.
Hey, I want to talk about your whole career and everything that's happened. And one of the things that when I watch your show and you introduce yourself as TV's Craig Ferguson.
Yeah.
Why do you do that? Because one of the reasons I think you've been so successful is the fact that, I don't know you, but it certainly seems to me that you're being yourself on TV, and that's why people like watching you so much.
Yeah, well, I guess, you know what, thank you. I think what it is that I started doing it because it was, when you start off doing a show, it's any old kind of hook you can get. I originally started introducing myself way early on in the show as, good evening, welcome to Stars Without Their Makeup, I'm Liza Minnelli. But it kind of...
that would be a scary thought.
It was hard to keep going with that every night. So it just was, because it's kind of such a tabloid thing to say, TV's Craig Ferguson, roly-poly funny man, Drew Carey, it sounded kind of tabloidish.
Right.
And I kind of liked that.
To it. But you got advice from of all people, Howard Stern, and from Peter Lasalle, who's your producer.
Well, Peter Lasalle is one of the executive producers of the show. Peter Lasalle is the guy, he produced Johnny Carson for 30 years, and The Tonight Show. He produced David Letterman when he came to CBS, right. And so Peter is like, a legend in late night television, and so he, and strangely enough, Howard Stern, who I only met once at the show once, and he is who he is on the air, and then off the air, he's much the same guy, but he was very intense about one particular thing. It was just when I got the job, and they both say the same thing. They both say, you've got to be yourself. You've got to own it. You can't be what, everyone else wants you to be, or the show will last 6 months and you'll be off the air. And for the first 2 or 3 months on the air, I did the things which people thought were right. I dyed my hair so it wasn't grey, and I kind of pretended I knew what I was talking about when I was talking about the baseball playoffs and stuff, and it just was stupid. And so I let go a bunch of writers who were writing, jokes for me, and I got some guys in, and now we kind of do a very different thing. I talk about whatever's on my mind. We do some topical stuff and play around with what.
But you improvise a lot, and you're not scripted in your monologue. You do a lot of things that are different than the other guys do.
I'm not scripted. I'm restricted in the sense that I can't cuss or badmouth any of the sponsors. Yeah, but the truth is I never cuss, of course, anyway, and I never badmouth anyone who's got the sense to advertise on CBS.
Good. I can't think of, maybe there is somebody out there, but of all the late night talk show hosts in history who have succeeded, I can't think of anybody who grew up abroad, because a lot of these shows have to deal with so much Americana that it's hard to do. How do you think you've managed to
Well, I think America is a changing place, and I think that, I feel very American. I describe myself as American by choice. There are things that I missed, but there's also things that I got. Strangely enough, I grew up, my parents were big country music fans, so I can do some old school country talk with you that a lot of Americans who don't know about country couldn't do.
But you do have to interview all sorts of people. You're interviewing rappers, football players, and, I don't think rap and football are too big when you were growing up in Scotland. Although you're a rugby player.
I was a rugby player, which is kind of like football without all the kind of trickery. And you celebrate at the end of the game by drinking the, champagne from the skull of the opposing captain's team. It's nasty business. I think what happened, and rap, of course, was it wasn't around anywhere when I was a kid.
Right, true.
I think what happens is that for me, it's about respect and interest. So it doesn't matter. I don't have to know what the person does for a living. I don't have to, if I'm talking to a plumber, I don't have to know what an XK3 double pipe twist bend is to have a conversation with a man. You have a conversation with the individual, then you have that conversation. I don't have to have, you know, a discussion about the intricacies of how they earn a living or how they present themselves to the world.
So you got real successful, and you started doing stand-up in Britain, and
you
did well. You came to the States. You were a successful actor. You were on the Drew Carey Show, movies, all sorts of things. Did you ever think you'd end up doing this?
No,
did you ever want to?
No, I never had no interest in being a talk show host, and I'm not sure that's what I am anyway. I think I'm a guy who's doing that right now, and if I end up doing it for a long time, I will, and if I don't, I won't. What I do is I try and enjoy myself when I do the show, so I don't kind of, I don't pigeonhole myself with it to that extent. I never grew up saying, you know, one day I'm gonna, you know, host the Tonight Show, or I want to be that guy. It wasn't my thing. What happened was when they had a tryout for the show, you know, they were trying out different people, they asked me to guest host. And when I guest hosted the show, I kind of fell in love with the idea of doing it. But, you know, I've made about 450 shows by now. I still love it most days, but it's a different kind of thing now. It's the first flush of the romance is gone, and now it's the kind of long grind of marriage.
You know, but it's a marriage that's going very well.
Yeah, it's going all right. Yeah, we're happy right now.
I mean, so much so that they've now given you the slot after the Super Bowl. I guess the Super Bowl, then the late news, local news, and then you're going to be the first show on that night. So you're going to have a massive audience.
Well, I think everyone will stay around. Americans will stay around, and no one will. They're like, no, the Super Bowl's over. Finally, we can get to the Scottish guy.
Exactly. It's the first time you're going to go out and do the show in the field. And
yeah, we're taking it to Miami. We're going down to Miami and doing a show down there. So I think it's very wise of CBS to change the way I do the show, take me to a different environment, make me go live, and triple the audience all in the same night. That'll be fun.
If I were you, I'd be happy about it too.
Yeah, I am overjoyed. I am what they call cock-a-hoop about the whole thing.
I don't want to ask what cock-a-hoop means.
Cock-a-hoop, sorry, it's not dirty. It's just so you know, it's not dirty.
You also wrote and directed a movie.
Yeah.
Not the best of experience.
I didn't enjoy that experience because the movie I'd done before it was a movie called Saving Grace, which was very popular and it had done very well. And I'd written that movie and I'd produced the movie and I was in the movie and I had a good time doing it. And then the next movie I did was a movie called I'll Be There, and I directed that movie and I wrote the movie and I was in the movie, but I didn't produce the movie. And I learned very quickly that how much power the producer has and how much the director doesn't have. And what happened was that there were a lot of events and a lot of things that went on in the movie, and it would be disrespectful of the people who worked on the movie for me to go into the details of that, but I had to accept a lot of things on the screen that weren't my idea for the film. So I kind of fell out of love with making films through making that picture.
To some extent, did that lead to the talk show and to your writing?
Well, it certainly led
terrific reviews.
Yeah.
It's called Between the Bridge and the River, and it's a novel, but it's got some memoir aspects to it.
It's got memoir aspects. I mean, the memoir aspects actually disappear after about the first 30, 40 pages because, you know, I went off in some tangent. But yeah, it was a way of. It was a way of telling a story without having to listen to a studio head or an executive or an advertiser or anyone in development or anyone else's idea of how the show was going to be. And I've been asked to sell the movie rights to that book a number of times, and I won't do it because it's a book. I know how to make movies. If I wanted to make a movie, I'd have made a movie. I don't need to make a movie of that book.